Welcome everybody to the 11th micro learning sales training. We're nearing the end here. I'm going to do a screen share so we can take a quick look back at the progress that we've done so far. And for those who are unmuted, I'm curious real quick. I want to get some feedback on the format. As many of you know, been to a lot of the trainings in the past, is that we traditionally did these in a day and a half, where it was like drinking out of a fire hose at times of just a lot of information, but immersing yourself in it for a day and a half, delivering this type of training. Obviously, this format has been different. We decided to roll out sales for the first one, to do this on the format of being an hour long session or less, 1 day a week for 12 weeks here. And we're going to be rolling out others like operations, financial, etc. like doing. I want to get some feedback from everyone here, knowing that many of the faces I've seen on most of these. Anyone want to share some feedback on what they think from a format standpoint about having these once a week? In particular, is it helpful having it spaced out a little bit so you have time to implement from 1 week to another? Or do you tend to prefer just getting it all in a short time frame?
I prefer having it spaced out.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Ed.
Okay, looks Ryan, like I'll tell you what we do is we take your bits and pieces of information every week, and then we talk about it at the office. We wouldn't be doing that if you set it out through the fire hose.
Yeah, love that. It's a great point, because then you have time to actually debrief with the team and say, okay, what were takeaways? What have you implemented? What are you going into next week focused on? So great. A lot of people shaking their head yes as well as we were talking about that. So it seems like consensus is it's nice to have it spread out a little bit, to have time to implement, talk about it with the team.
Two things. Number one, I think that if we were to go and have some handouts in advance and just kind of a handout package of certain things, because it always seems like Lane will present something and then it was like, gee, what did I do with that handout? I'd like to go and have that. And second thing, what I think would be interesting is if we can go and spread it out, which I like the idea of spreading it out, give us homework. What are we doing, and where can we go and do those little improvements? What are our tasks? What are our next tasks in terms of doing it? I love this format as opposed to the fire hose.
Did you get beat up in school a lot for asking for homework?
We're lucky we're on Zoom, because otherwise I think Todd would be like beating me up.
That's helpful. That's great feedback. I like hearing that. So thank you. Those are good points. And yeah, we've heard that echoed from a few others as well. So thanks for hearing that, Vic. Okay. Any other thoughts before we jump in here? Everybody see my screen okay? All right. Perfect. All right. So we'll jump into it here, everybody. So today's focus, as you know, is going into the proposal telephony, which for us in the industry, we call it telephony, but people outside the industry, they call it phone systems. We're talking about the actual proposal. And then a reminder there, dogs barking. Let's go ahead and mute or I'll mute everybody. Let's take a quick look, as we do each time, jumping through here, is take a quick look back at what we've accomplished. And to people, including Vic's point here, is that we've had time to implement all this from week to week. So the first week was really set the stage, looking at understanding this transaction as a whole, position yourself to win the deals. Then going into the second one is actually putting together a plan. We talked a lot about you are in business for yourself as a salesperson, but without the risk. You need to put together a business plan or sales plan of what are the objectives, what are the goals, reverse engineer it, how are you going to get there. Then we got into leveraging DISC. DISC can be leveraged in a whole lot of ways, but particularly in sales, it helps a whole lot to know how to modify or shape your communication to build better rapport and to deliver messaging or your communication to your prospect or customer in the way that they want. Talked about that in the third one, then went into prospecting above the line, then followed by prospecting below line, difference being relationship based. When we have a relationship to leverage, whether that's a customer or a referral partner, etc., that becomes a whole lot better opportunity, and you start off a step above than you would without a relationship. Then we get into objection handling, going into methodology of how do you actually anticipate and plan for what the objections are and try to address those early on in the process so you're not just reacting to them when you're trying to close the business. Then we get into the actual multi-step sales process and get into the phase 1 of pre-sales planning and phase 2 of the first meeting guide. What are things you do leading up to the first meeting, and then what's the guide in the first meeting there? Then we went into the sales process phase 3, which is performing a successful assessment. Understanding that we can't propose any sort of solution without understanding what the environment currently is from a physical standpoint, and also from looking at the IT side or the voices. What does the bandwidth look like? What does the infrastructure look like? Equipment, etc. So understand how to do that properly. Then go into the next one, which is the sales process phase 4, making a recommendation before finalizing proposal. This is the huge one, particularly on the IT side, of looking at going back and making a recommendation, getting consensus before you just come back with a proposal, so that they don't say, well, that's not what I was thinking. And then you're like, oh, well, hold on, let's turn back around. So that one's been critical to go through. And then we go into on the IT side, the sales process focused on proposal and getting the deal done. And then today, as we're talking about, going into the telephony side, we chose to break this up because there's some nuances, and we feel, especially in the micro learning format, that there's not enough time to do diligence or do justice, trying to group those together. And so we decided to break them up. So today we'll be focused on the telephony side. And then tomorrow or next week, the next one is going to be really bringing everyone back together, having a conversation. What was shared earlier about things from Dean about having a chance to debrief the team. Think of everyone here in the tag community as a team of what do we take away from it? What did we implement? What's working? What could we use some feedback or additional clarity on? That's what next week is for, is more of a roundtable discussion that will help facilitate. Looking forward to that. Now, let's go ahead and jump into it. What I want to start with is understanding that there is a sales process. We've been through this. I know, Andrew, we've talked about this. Most of the people on the call have seen there's a process, there's steps to go through. And the whole idea of having all these steps, which there's a lot of them, is that it differentiates against most of our competition. Most of the competition is not going to go through even half of these steps. I want to just reiterate each step real quick leading up to the proposal, because if these are missed going through the process, then we have a chance to rectify those in most cases before we deliver a proposal and hold that back, because we know that if something was missed there, then it's going to hurt our chances of closing that deal once we get to the proposal. So instead of just delivering that and ignoring it, just want to recap real quick the process going through here real quickly. Obviously, set the first appointment. A number of ways to do that. We talked about it before. You can refer back to above the line or below line prospecting, how to set the appointment, leverage referrals, relationships, customer base, etc. Once that appointment is set, we send out a front-end package. If you don't have a front-end package, we have templates. Janet does a phenomenal job of customizing those for our tag members. You can either use the templates we have or say this is what we're trying to accomplish, and she can help design something for you. Really what that is, having an opportunity to send some information prior to the meeting. It does a few key things. One is, again, differentiates. Competition's not doing that. It gives a little more education time so that shows up to the prospect's office, and they have a chance to take a look at who you are as a company if they're not already familiar before you even get there. So you have a little more time and education to set the stage. And then lastly is that we get an indicator of their disc style. So understanding that we want to build rapport quickly when we get there in that discovery meeting is that we ask about it, and if they say, oh, did you have a chance to read it? And it's sitting on their desk, they say, oh yeah, I took a quick glance at it. But yeah, it looks good. We know they're probably a higher D type personality, right? So we want to shape our communication to be a little more direct to the point. That helps us. Then versus if we ask the same question, did you have a chance to take a look at it? And they go through and they say, yeah, we went through it. They open it up. It's highlighted, undermarked. They had questions about it. We know that they're more detail oriented. They're going to be a little more analytical. We then learn that early in the process. We can shape communication around it. So a lot of value in sending out that front end package. Then we go do customer research. We want to understand who we're meeting with. If it is a customer, oftentimes we can still learn more about them. Carrying on the customer website research, take the time to go through and understand what they do, how they do it. So we're not asking the questions of what industry are they in or what do they do for business. We should know that. We should use the information to shape better questions going in that discovery. Meeting preparation call. This is overlooked too many times. We work with all across the nation and sales leaders and sales people, from new sales reps all the way to tenured reps. And inevitably, this is a skip step where there's no confirmation of which is part of the preparation calls. One that you just simply call, confirm, looking forward to our appointment next Wednesday at 1. I'll see you then. By the way, and preparing for our appointment to make sure we use the time best spent together. Where else should we be looking to get a better understanding of anything else in business? They'll typically tell you something. Again, it helps you understand their disc style. And if nothing, they say, okay, wow, there's some due diligence here, and we firmed up the appointment. So critical step there. Going to the first appointment, I know we spend a lot of time in doing that of what do we do there? How does that conversation look? We're trying to build rapport, we're discovering, and we're setting expectations for the next steps. If we haven't already gotten the phone bills, we want to get those because it's a critical piece to the proposal of showing the ROI, the return on investment. Typically, we'll ask for those when we set the appointment, so we can go out there and we already have them. We can look at them before. If we haven't gotten them, then we want to get them coming out of that first appointment. Tag comfort letter. So this is something that some of our tag members take advantage of, basically leveraging the relationship of tag, having national coverage with local presence, having the brain bank of leading managed technology service providers across the nation into Canada. Leveraging that type of information by being a part of the tag community is powerful for a lot of the sales situations we get into. So there's a comfort letter that can be put together, customized, sent out to the prospect to that nature. Bill analysis, going through the bill analysis, that's a core piece of the proposal. It will show here, breaking down what their current spend is relating to telephony versus what their new spend will be after we come in with a proposed solution. We have opportunity to send press releases based on the discovery meeting. We have hundreds of press releases that we can customize for you and put name, logo, etc. on there to be able to send as a follow-up to the customer saying, we talked about this, wanted to reiterate. I thought this might be an interesting read for you based on our conversation. See attached, adds value, very easy to do with the resource we have here. Again, Janet can help do that or even customize if we need to. Project overview, critical one. We'll be spending more time on this because this is a core piece of the proposal book, but basically making sure coming out of that meeting, the first discovery, and what the key things that we want to accomplish with the customer by bringing in a new telephony solution. Those are highlighted and tied into the whole process, including the demonstration, the demo, and the proposed solution to make sure that what are those key things that they want out of replacing or updating or bringing in a new system, and that we're on the same page with that. Network assessment, just like on the IT side, we need to know the environment. Do they have the right wiring? Do they have the right equipment? Do they have PoE switches? What does the environment look like? Do they have sufficient bandwidth to be able to run voice over IP? You need to understand that. And then the demo, being able to tie that back to the project overview and really not do a feature dump of where here's the 200 features we can do, but knowing you, Mr. Prospect, and your business and what we talked about, here are the 3 to 5 things that we're going to focus on accomplishing because it's going to give you a competitive advantage, you can differentiate you in the marketplace and highlight those things and then see if we need to expand from there. So, control that demo in that way. CTAP call, not going to spend a lot of time on it today. We're going to breaking this off into a separate call that we'll do based on demand. This is a model essentially that was the most profitable way of selling on-premise solutions, where you put it into a 5-year lease that's on steroids, essentially, that has a refresh component where all the support is included. And then that 3-year mark at a 5-year lease, you can come in, refresh or update or add 50% new technology, push it out to the original term. And then you have a customer for life who always has new technology updated, supported, and they never see another invoice outside of that monthly payment. Last is we're getting today is setting a closing appointment, present the proposal. First thing we talk about when we sit down, and keep in mind, everybody, is that traditionally this is done, and Vic knows this, and many of the others, Penny was sitting through presentation, this training in the past is that we would sit down and physically walk through a proposal book and the pages and how we do it, where we pause, where we highlight things or ask questions. We're doing this virtually, so I'm going to walk through this here. But the first page that we get to and the first discussion that we talk to after we exchange pleasantries and thank them for the opportunity is that we discuss the investment. And we do this, we use this terminology very specifically, is that we don't say, here's the price of the new system or here's what's it going to cost you. It's here's the investment and let me show you how we got there. Investment is different than the price because they're investing in their technology, they're investing in their business, they're investing in their team to have the right tools to be able to accomplish what they do as a business. So when we shape it in that way, they look at it a little bit different as just a line item, an expense and necessary thing. As I'm investing in my business, I'm investing in technology, especially today with remote working and all the changes that are happening in an office environment, is that technology has become even more important for proper communication, supporting their own customers. Phrasing it like this, reiterating that this is going to be your investment. Now let me show you how we get there. Makes a big difference. We touched on the difference in investment versus price. Invest in their business versus here's just the price of the system. This is one of the most critical documents of the proposal book that we go through, and we start here for a reason, because when we start talking about this whole solution, there's a lot of different items that we go through in the proposal book. From training to expectations to the actual equipment, the Schedule A's, support, all those sort of things. But you can imagine the prospect, they're thinking, well, what is this going to cost me? Or if we shape it right, what does this investment look like? And that's why we go directly to this page, which is a summation of what are they currently spending, which is the first part. And then based on what we're coming in with and proposing as a solution, well, what is the net new investment? So we basically make it easy for them to understand, because we don't want to take it for granted that they're going to do themselves, is that here's what you're currently spending, which is in this example, $1,100 and some change, almost $1,200, based on local long distance package with the T1 and a maintenance agreement on an old Toshiba system. Keep in mind here is that when we're working these ROIs up, is that we want to make sure that we incorporate any sort of cost or any sort of expense that is going against their current systems, which could be a break fix average. Say they only call someone once a quarter and it's only for a couple hours. Well, we want to know what is that average cost so we can work that into our ROI. Or if they have a maintenance agreement, that's more straightforward. It's probably an annual cost they spend. And any other thing that can go into them supporting that old system, we want to make sure that we capture that so then we can show that as cost justification here. So we know if we can come in and find some help pay for the new system, it's going to be a whole lot more attractive, coupled with the features, the functionality, the support, all things that we bring to the table in addition to this. I'm going down here, proposed services, solutions is now we compare this with the solution that we bring in. Mr. Customer, keeping a high level, this is what your current expenses are supporting your old system. And here is with our solution, this is what you're looking at. We come in, we switch out the internet, bring enough bandwidth and make it more efficient. And then we bring in the support plan with the phone system, provide equipment, and the SIP paths or the new phone lines that are going to replace the old phone lines. Plus, provided WatchGuard firewall appliance or any firewall appliance. And we'll get to why we put this in here later, because it's a linchpin that will lead to IT conversation after this. But also ensures that we have QoS and properly support and shape traffic, do all things we need to do to make sure the experience is good. So we want to make sure that we include that, plus increases the revenue on opportunities. Looking at this, we get to bottom line with the prospect and saying, before you're spending about $1,200 a month. With our new solution, you're getting faster bandwidth. You're having a newer system with all the support included, provided equipment, the paths or the lines that they would understand, plus a firewall to help keep it secure and make sure the quality is top notch. And after you subtract the savings, then the net new spend is $335 a month. So, Mr. Prospect, your net new investment is going to be $335 a month. Now you get an opportunity to move forward where they understand, okay, that's my investment, and it's not as daunting for them to be waiting towards the end of saying we say all these things and they're not really listening because they're wondering how much that investment is. So it sets the stage and it shapes it in a way that shows the cost savings applied to the new system as well. Then we backtrack a little bit to the earlier in the proposal book, which is going to have company background. And this ties back to the front end package that has a lot of the background, assuming that was also covered in the discovery meeting, probably touched on in the demo call. But this is an opportunity to really go in and highlight if there's any perceived differentiators going through the sales process that really stood out. For example, their current vendor or partner does horrible with support. Maybe it's overseas, they have to call India for support. If they have no support, or if they ever need to roll a truck for support, then they're paying hourly. Those sort of things that you found resonated with them or pain points could be highlighted as the benefits as you go into company background. So depending on the situation and the prospect, then you want to highlight certain things here. Another could be that they're a solid referral source. Say they're an accounting company, a great reputation. You know that you both have mutual customers you can pass back and forth. That's kind of been hinted to or discussed through the process. So maybe that wants to be reinforced. Mutual values, similar involvement in the community, etc. Highlight the things that resonate with them. One other thing here that we hear resonates in situations is that leveraging tag relationship is saying that we have, especially multi-locations, maybe spread across the country or multi-states, is that we, through the tag network, this is how we're able to provide national coverage with local presence and go into that if it's relevant. And as we talked about, easy support. Sometimes their current way that they're supporting their system is a call center overseas. That's a big pain point for them. Opportunity here to go back and reiterate what is relevant, not the whole history and everything with the company, but what is going to make a difference for them based on everything that led up to this point. Now, here's an example of project overview. This is something rarely that we came across our competitors providing, especially if you're going up against a carrier that's just sending out quotes. They're not going to take the time to do this, so it's a huge differentiator. Here's the idea with a project overview. Coming out of the first meeting is that we're trying to capture a handful of key objectives, key features, key things that are important to the prospect that we can highlight, that we make sure we're on the same page. And then we send that to them. We put that together and we set that expectation coming out of the discovery meeting. We say, Mr. Customer, I want to make sure that we are on the same page. I'm going to put together a project overview highlighting the things that we both hope to accomplish going through this process. And then I'll circle back to you with a draft to make sure we're on the same page. The seed is planted at the end of that first discovery meeting. And then we have an opportunity to put this together and focus on what are the things that are important to them. We talked about evaluating connectivity and trying to come back with a recommendation of that. So we're going to highlight that. We're talking about increasing productivity and giving a competitive advantage through a new VoIP system, especially if they have an old legacy PBX. It's going to be a highlighted one. Find me, follow me, especially when teams are working remote. That really resonates with a lot of companies right now. Want to find the things that are going to resonate. Another one, call recording for training quality purposes. A lot of companies, keep in mind, are bringing people on remotely right now, trying to train them, trying to ramp them up, and having the ability to record, whether customer service, sales, or other departments, can be a tremendous tool when they're forced to do all that remotely. So the idea is coming out of the first meeting, put together a project overview, make sure we're on the same page, call the prospect and say, I have a project overview. Just need 5 minutes. I want to share this draft with you, walk through it, make sure we're on the same page, and so that we can put together the solution that is best for you. Run them through this, ask for them to just initial it, and then that way we have a little micro commitment that, okay, we know what we're trying to accomplish. We know what's most important to them. This then gets reiterated in the demonstration. We know it's a guideline to hit on the certain things in the demo that are going to be important to them. And then going into proposal book, like we're talking about, is that we hit this again and say, okay, these are things we first talked about are important. Are these still the most critical ones? Yes, absolutely. Okay, perfect. Let's keep moving forward. We get buy-in on that. Training side. This is another area that we can differentiate going against the competition, is that we have to remember that a lot of competition is sending out the phones in a box, and we call plug and pray. Plug them in and pray and hope they work. And sometimes they do, oftentimes they don't. If they don't, typically call an 800 number, overseas support. It's just a pain. So having the ability to focus on how we differentiate with training and how we have more of a white glove approach and we come on site and do the things that we need to do. Obviously, depending on the size and the location, it can look different with each prospect. But point being is that it's a differentiator. I just want to highlight that in the proposal process. It also gives us a chance to plant seeds. Dale talks about this a lot, talked about in the first micro-learning session, is that when we start talking about, okay, explaining the training process and they get to see themselves in that process, then they're already thinking about that before they even gone through with signing yet. And so that gives them the idea that, okay, this is what we're planning on doing, plant the seed of that. And then we transition into showing them, okay, this is the process. We're going to hold the hands. We're going to put people in groups. We're going to speak to the decision makers of, okay, if you don't want to learn, sometimes they don't want to sit in a group with the rest of the team. They just want to have a quick education on how to use the phones, do they need to do real quick and get back to work. Then we can break those off individually. We customize it based on what they're looking for, so they know that they're going to get the attention, the customization, the training they need, and they're going to feel comfortable with that, and they're going to see themselves getting that and ultimately moving forward with it. A lot of this is contrasting what it could look like with the other technology solutions that they're looking at. They're for sure looking at some other technology, whether it's a carrier services company that's coming in with an inexpensive VoIP solution, or some other provider, is that they're looking at some other technology. And we want to provide a little contrast, particularly with the ones that are going to ship it in a box and plug and pray, is that if we can contrast that and highlight that that's going to be a different experience in doing it with us, we don't want to leave that for them to figure out. We want to explain that and maybe share it through a story of a past experience with a customer that we transitioned away from XYZ company, and highlight that the difference that they perceived it to be in working with us. Also want to recognize that change for human nature is difficult. And so we want to recognize that, we want to acknowledge it, and we want to diminish it as much as we can. And how do we do that? Is that we recognize that they have been working with this system for however long in a certain way. So we need to understand that. We need to understand what's the most important for their day to day and get them trained phases of where they understand how to be able to feel comfortable using the phone to start with, and then build on that to help make them do their daily activities more efficiently, but not overwhelm them. And so just simply addressing and talking through that with them will diminish that concern, as opposed to one day we're going to show up, it's going to be a brand new system, and it's going to be a lot for them. We want to set the right expectation there. Another piece of proposal book that we're going to talk through is the carrier services management. Now, there's two ways to do this. One is that you can set yourself up as what's called work with a master agent, which has the ability to go out and source options for connectivity. And that'll allow you to get a little stream of revenue from those contracts of when they bring in bandwidth to your customer. It'll allow you to control the bandwidth and the relationship there, so you have more control over that environment. The other model is that you can just partner with the reps. The sales reps are out there selling the internet, and oftentimes they are also selling VoIP solutions. But when you talk to most of them, the vast majority, they don't want to because they know it's a headache. They know that they're not making the most money off of it. So they'd rather partner with a company like our tag members to say, okay, you bring in the internet and we'll bring in the phone system. We'll take care of the mutual client and all is good. And we'll refer each other for all these opportunities. And it's a win-win. Whatever model you go, it's critical to be able to have that relationship so that you can help manage and protect that side of it. Because, we jokingly call it the dark side of our business for a reason. But when things go wrong, it's typically relating to the carrier. And so having a relationship there, a master agent agreement, is going to be beneficial going through the process. And in doing so, you can work in helping do project management, helping port numbers, helping make sure that they're bringing in new cable or fiber, that at least being aware of it and managing it to some extent is going to provide a lot of value for the prospect. Again, not all competition is going to do that. And the idea is make it easy for the customer so they don't have to think about all the moving parts, is that you're going to be that central role and helping push things forward and make sure it's all smooth for them. So expectations and communication is big. Is what does that look like? What are the time frames? What are the milestones we're going to hit on? And make sure that that's understood with the prospect and the internal team as well. And stay involved in the process. It's something that I always found a whole lot of value in staying involved. And some people don't like to. They want to sell it and move on. But found in doing that, miss out on a whole lot of opportunity referrals, because you don't have to stay involved to an extent of where it consumes your whole day, but just being aware and being in the background. And if things go awry, you can jump in real quick and rectify, or at least have the conversation and smooth things over. It goes a long way. So I highly recommend staying involved in the whole process, including the carrier services side. Another differentiator that we highlight in the proposal book is what we call partner plan. Competition will call it maintenance agreement. Basically, all the things that we do to support the system moving forward and make sure that it's a good, smooth experience. And so we go through, particularly when we're up against a company that is just sending them a quote and it's less expensive. And then we'll go through and say, okay, well, we must be missing something here. Let's go through and let's assign the cost of this, because we know all these things that we're doing are included in the support that we're providing. And so if we're going up against a carrier that's 20% less, we say, okay, well, understood. First off, usually get what you pay for. And secondly, what are they doing for support? What happens if they need to roll a truck? What happens if a new employee comes on board and you have to train them? Training, ongoing training, all these different things. So it gives us an opportunity to walk through all these and identify, ask them to go back and say, well, what is the cost of this to the other competitor? What are they going to charge the prospect? And then typically they'll say, well, that's not included, or it's a third party, or there is a charge for that, and here's what it is, hourly, break fix. And then typically I'll bring up the pricing of what we are, and it'll show differentiation of, look, we're doing it right. We're including what we need to make sure that you're supported and it's up and running and it's taken care of, so that every time that you need something, you don't have to worry about making a phone call and wondering, am I going to receive a bill and how much is that bill going to be for? So customer responsibilities, we touch on two-way communication is massive. Going through the process and understanding that this is what it looks like. Here's what the process is going to be. Here's next steps. Here's what we'll need from you is an important piece, because some prospects feel like, hey, I signed the agreement. I write you a check. You take care of all of it, which is great. We'll take care of everything we need to on our side, but here's what we need from you to make it a successful installation, training, etc. Primary point of contact is important. Having communication on deadlines, things like that, collecting the information we need to hit our deadlines. Those sort of things that overlooked in the beginning can jam up a timeline later on. And if a high D type personality doesn't give you the information you need, We've all been there where we're up against a port or a deadline that we don't have the information we need, and we want to make sure we set the expectation. That's part of the process. So we touch on the responsibilities of the prospect, the customer, so we make sure that we're on the same page moving forward. A simple example, like I was talking about, is assigning a single point of contact. This is another opportunity where you can plant seeds. In this context, one of the favorite questions that we ask is, as we're going through customer responsibilities, one of the most important ones is that we have a single point of contact so that we can make sure that communication flows both ways. Will that be you, Mr. Prospect? And then they're going to be thinking about, okay, is that going to be me? And that puts you towards the customer position already. They're already thinking about, okay, yeah, is that going to be me, or is that going to be Susie in accounting? Who would that be? Yeah, I think it's going to be either myself and or this person. Now, what we've done there is pretty powerful because they're already putting themselves in a position of moving forward with it. So it's little things like that that can help nudge it along. We have a Schedule A portion in here with the proposal book. One thing you'll notice is that things are listed here, but there's not a lot of information, meaning that there's not line item pricing. So we're not listing exactly how much the user license are, how much each extension, how much each device or instrument is. That's not all broken down. And also the model numbers, the makes, the SKUs, those things aren't documented as well, making it easy for them to go out and source it on Amazon or Google and be able to say, well, I got it for cheaper here. We break this down in a way that gives them the information they need so we can talk through this and talk about users, talk about the difference the premium user and what they get, and then the devices, how we're providing those, and then bottom line pricing is that the investment here is a recurring charge, and then there's non-recurring charge. It's broken down here. And again, this is where we'd circle back to the financial summary of showing this, because right here, the A67 isn't their net new spend. We found savings, so their real net new spend is only $335. And so this is where once we go through this, we circle back to that and say, okay, yes, the new system is this, but we found X amount of dollars, so those are applied to this, and the net new spend is only $335 investment monthly basis. One other thing, and this also helps tie back to the financial summary or the ROI document, the return on investment, is that we tie in the firewall. So we put that there for a reason. We always include it on every deal, even if they say they have a firewall, because a number of reasons. One is that we talk about how it helps us ensure QoS, quality of service, and to the security component. We can better control and manage the bandwidth and the quality of the system by putting that in there. So it's to our advantage, it's to the customer's advantage to be able to do that. And selfishly, it helps increase the recurring revenue that we're selling in there, makes it easier for us to manage, and also it gives us an opportunity to have a linchpin in there for future IT opportunities. So if we control the firewall, or we're providing and managing the firewall, after we close the voice side, then it is much easier to immediately circle back and say, by the way, how are you managing your IT? We'll probably already know that going through the process because we probably interacted with their IT support going through it. But we probably have some information about how the experience is going for them. And we can ask them at that point, can I show you a different way of doing it? And we have the firewall in place. So that's going to give us advantage of doing that. All around, including a firewall, whether we think that we can get it based on the opportunity or based on how new their existing one is, it's a good idea to include on every single one and let them push back if they don't want to have it. And we can talk through the advantages of having it from their standpoint. Tremendous amount of value we found in including a firewall on every VoIP opportunity. Let's talk a little bit about how to ask for the order. Once we get to the end of this, there's things that lead up to this where we want to be the first in and last out. We want to drive the conversation on the front end so we can help shape expectations. We can set the stage of what they really should be looking at, what a real solution is, what it encompasses, support, long-term investment, the advantages they get from it, both hard ROI and soft ROI. Hard ROI, what we hit is the financial summary, cost savings applied to the cost of the new system. Soft ROI, we hit really hard with the project overview, with the demo and highlighting the functionality. Soft ROI is like allowing for your employees to work remotely and do it more efficiently, being able to record calls for training purposes, for quality assurance. Those are soft. That's soft ROI that they're going to get an advantage in return from, but it's hard for the C-type style to quantify it. It's hard to put that into a spreadsheet. But we do want to highlight that as we're talking through it and talk about the soft ROI versus hard ROI. And so that way they really get the full picture of the advantage of the system from all fronts. Going back to first in, last out, we help shape that in the beginning by having that type of conversation. And then being last out is that's something that we're managing through the process of understanding where they're at with the other technology solutions that they're looking at, and understanding that it's okay to ask those types of questions, like what other technology are you looking at through the process, because we know there probably are, and we'd rather know that early on so we can position appropriately to be last in versus show up and present something and then try to ask for an order. And they say, oh, yeah, well, your competitor's coming in tomorrow for last presentation. Absolutely every single time we ask to be last in. And it's very rare when they say no, because most competition won't ask to be last in. They'll just rush to a quote, maybe a proposal, but they won't say, we like to have an opportunity to be the last to present our solutions so we can really talk through the different services, different offerings, different benefits and value you're getting from others, be able to compare it properly to ours. Would that be okay with you? Most of the time they're going to say, yeah, absolutely. Why not? It's important to position yourself to be first in, last out. A huge differentiator that we took advantage of at iNet heavily is doing month to month. Is that obviously everyone has their own decision of how we position the contracts, but this is what we found is one is that a term is a pending event, whether it's a 1 year, 2 year, 3, 5. Once that expires, people psychologically, they think that it's time to evaluate their options. There's a trigger event where in most cases, whether they're happy or not, at the end of an agreement, they're going to go out and say, well, what other options do we have? Doing month to month, it eliminates that. Then you get approved, just like we do on a lot of other solutions, approve service and take care of everyone month to month. And as long as they're happy, they're going to stay with you. The other huge thing it does on the sales side is gives a competitive advantage. Most competition is not going to do month to month. And if they do, they'll spike up the pricing pretty heavily. We were able to get into a very competitive situation and come out on top in most cases because we came in and say, look, we'll do it month to month because we have confidence in provide you with the service you want and need, the right pricing. We'll earn your business every month. And that's a huge differentiator on the sales side. And then asking for the business is not complicated. I know oftentimes some people don't feel comfortable asking for it, but that's what everything leads up to. And we joke, I've heard Dale joke a whole lot about this, about its logical conclusion to a well thought out process. But it really is, if you hit all the steps, you do your homework, you put together the right solution, then it really is asking the customer for the business. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It's as simple as, Mr. Prospect, how would you like to proceed at this point? And the way we say that with the terminology of how would you like to proceed, it's making an assumption that we are proceeding. It's just how are we doing it? It gives them the permission to say, okay, well, yeah, it looks like we'll do this right now, or let's do this next month, whatever it is. But either way, we're proceeding. We're getting the desired outcome. Obviously, today's environment, we're often working remote. And many of us on this call are working from home offices. Many of our customers or prospects are working remotely as well. How does that affect us going into this proposal? Well, a lot of things don't change, but if we need to For example, if we need to go and do a proposal that is virtual, remote, then we have the ability to do that through platforms like Zoom or Teams, or whatever platform you want to use. But a couple important factors here. One is that we don't send quotes. We never just blindly send a quote. And in general, we never refer to it as a quote, because if it's a quote, then it's just numbers, right? It's just pricing. We're presenting proposals, better yet, solutions to help wherever we can with the business. And so that's going through the whole process, project overview, demo, reinforcing all that. But if we get there's often times where myself and a team at INET, a sales team member, would get in a situation where they said, just email me the quote. And we got to the point of where we don't have any quotes. It's a customized solution that we put together for you. And frankly, we don't send them out via email because it doesn't do justice. We find it just confuses. If we send it out, there's explanation that goes along with it. We want to have opportunity to be able to walk you through it and explain it, make sure we can address any questions that they come up. We push back on that, and we wouldn't send them via email. And in worst case, if we, especially now in a virtual environment, if we have to send something like that, we'll do it with a meeting of where we'll send it out only once we get a commitment to be able to review it, even if it's a short review of, okay, here it is. Now, we also have this on the calendar for tomorrow at 3 to review it together, address questions, etc. Because otherwise, we're sending it into the abyss. We don't know who else is going to see it. We don't know what questions they're going to have, not going to be addressed, who's going to answer those or address those. We also don't know who's at the table or behind the table. If we do hit all the steps properly, then we're asking questions leading up to this. Is that, for example, in the first meeting, we should be asking, besides yourself, because we want to recognize them as being a decision maker or at least an influencer, hopefully, since we're meeting with them. Besides yourself, Mr. Prospect, who else will be involved in making this decision? We have to ask that in the process, because if we end up at the proposal table and we only have an influencer, or maybe we just have one decision maker but not the other decision maker and or influencers, then they're not going to be in a position to be able to make a decision. We want to understand that leading up to this is that who else needs to be at the table, or who else maybe is behind the table, who isn't going to be there. Maybe they're a silent partner, whatever the case is. But we want to understand who those players are, and it's okay to ask those types of questions to this, so that when we get there, we know that we have the right people in the room, or at least we know who those people are. Keep momentum forward. Once we get the proposal, once they say yes, that sounds great, Ryan, let's proceed. Let's get this going at the end of the month. Okay. We want to get obviously agreements going, all that good stuff. But what's next is that here's what you can expect from us, from our team. Here's the next steps. Here's the plan. Even if we don't have hard dates and all that, here's what that looks like. Here's what that process looks like. So we start setting expectations. We get commitments to continue moving forward. Last thing we want to do is have a deal stall out after we sign, or push and say, sign, but let's hold off to implement until next quarter. We had a lull or some sort of stall. So we want to sides internal, what the schedule looks like, what the realistic expectations are, and how we can get that moving forward and plant that seed, plant the process, and lay that out for the customer. Keep it all moving forward. Another huge piece is the best time to ask for referrals is when they're at their high, when they just agree to it. We don't have to wait until a year down the road or even after install. Is that I got to the point of where I'd ask immediately after them signing, and then ask again after we installed it, and then ask again at the 1 year mark. And oftentimes I get multiple referrals from the same one at each of those times. Found that it doesn't hurt to ask for a referral. The worst they can say is no. Just like we do in sales, ask for the business, worst thing to say is no. We're in the same position we were if we didn't ask. Why not ask for that referral? A whole lot of ways to do that, which we can talk at a later date. As we start to wrap up here, Tag wants to help. Obviously, that's why we're here. Is that we're here to strategize your deals with you as you're going through competition. There's a tremendous amount of experience on the Tag team that have gone through and see all kinds of things. Let us help you. That's strategizing deals. helping put together project overviews, putting the first few together using templates and understanding the type of business they are, what's most important, how you can position that, draft it, and have us review the proposal. Everyone's proposal book is a little bit different. We have templates, but all you have your own as well. If you want to share those and have a review to see if there's anything you can do to improve upon it, happy to do that. Role playing, going through a big presentation or a small one as a new rep, and you just do a dry run and a role play of, this is what I put together, and this is how I'm gonna this is how I'm gonna run through with the prospect. Happy to role play with you. We talked about CTAP briefly. If there's on-premise solutions where that's where CTAP comes into play, then let us know and we'll run through that with you and the nuances there. Ultimately, the goal is that all these steps here, everything we talked about, is designed to differentiate you in the marketplace, be able to compete against everyone else out there. And the best way to do that is follow all the steps, even though there are many, because we know the more steps you hit, the higher close ratio you have. Wrapping up here, only a few minutes left, but as we've been doing, is that we'll keep this open for at least 15 minutes after for those who want to stay on and continue the conversation or comments or questions. But at this time, whoever has questions, you can come off mute, or any comments or feedback. Now's the time to do so. Stop share here. Okay, so Vic, I think you dropped off here. I know, there you are, Vic. I want to get your feedback. I know you've been through a tremendous amount of sales training over the years. I've sat on the other side with you, I know. Mm-hmm. What stood out to you? What takeaways you have from this, Vic?
There are a few things that I think are really important to always keep in mind. Number one, confused people never buy. You've got to make sure that all the documentation, everything is spelled out in very clear-cut, understandable English. Not three-letter acronyms, not anything that is techno-jargon or anything else.
Yeah, no techniques.
Confused people never buy.
Yep.
Which leads me to a question about, proposing the WatchGuard at the same time. That just seems like I'm asking for a world of confusion, unless it's a greenfields opportunity and they have absolutely no firewall in place, or they have an outdated firewall.
Yep. So here's what we found is that we included it on every single deal, and not everyone closed. But what it did is we positioned it as an appliance to help with QoS, to help with our ability to manage it properly. And of course, sometimes they have an IT person that's like, no, we have our Cisco. It's not going to happen. Okay, we'll fight that battle later when we circle back to try to displace, IT, right? So it's not going to happen every time. But what we found is amazingly, sometimes they just say, okay. And even if they bought one a couple of years ago, they'll say, okay, yeah, if you guys can better manage it, and we're not that thrilled with our IT anyways, and that's no problem. Plus, it's only $180 a month. We spent $3,000 on our last one 3 years ago. So that's what we found our experience. But obviously, if it's working for you, keep doing it that way. I would encourage try it though, and position it as an appliance to help with your management and the QoS.
I'm always worried about my excitement level with WatchGuard though, because they have some other products like the AuthPoint and the Passport and all these other cool products that are really not very expensive. And if I position WatchGuard in there, I'm going to want to sell that other stuff, and then I'm going to run the danger of violating my own rule, which is I'm confusing the customer.
Yeah, so just don't do that. Yeah, no, I mean, that's where you circle back on the IT side, right? You circle back to, okay, get deeper into it, but just keeping it basic with, I mean, we always hold total security with it. And again, everyone has their own firewall solutions, but we always just put in total security and put it in the firewall. We didn't talk, Graphis or Passly or any security awareness training. We tabled that for once we were done with the VoIP deal, and that's in. Then we circle back to the IT side and then talk about, what else it means from IT and security standpoint.
Follow-up question though, what about SD-WAN sale? Do you do the SD-WAN sale at the same time?
Yeah, so good question. I think that's case by case, depending on the size, the environment, what it's like when you do the site survey, and the opportunity there. If it's relevant, yeah, absolutely. But everyone has different comfort level on SD-WAN on both sides, the tag member and the prospect. So I think it's case by case. For me, it's blanket for the firewall, including every deal. SD-WAN depends on the situation, the need. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Penny, I might get you some feedback from you too. I know you've been to trainings over the years as well. Any thoughts or comments from your end?
Not really. I think it's great. I think we definitely need to review our project overview. That needs to get redone. So that's something that I'm going to take away and look at again.
Nice. Okay. Sounds good. All right, Andrew, I know you're out in the streets a lot, and we talked about some of this. Anything stick out for you?
Yeah, to kind of piggyback on what Penny said, the project overview is something that we haven't really been using internally. I did, while you were speaking, go and download a couple templates that were on the tag website. I actually have a customer that I'm speaking with today. I think part of the presentation before I go back out is really this project overview. I'm going to use it with them and kind of, gauge how it helps. So I'll look over what the sheet has. If I have any questions or anything, I'll definitely reach out to you. And another aspect I want to say is with the training, this is new to me. The shorter versions have been very helpful. I think if it was condensed into one day, it's a lot to take.
Yeah.
And also having those videos. So, if there's a refresher I want from last week, I can just go right back to the tag website and it's on the recording as well.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Yeah, it's a common thread is that it's nice to have it broken up like that. I remember the first few I sat through. I was like trying to, Google VoIP and learn all the acronyms, let alone, digest all the content in a day and a half. It's a lot of information, right? So she has a new rep. And so yeah, I think it's hugely valuable.
For sure.
All right. Sounds good. Ed, you popped up on the radar. Any feedback on your end?
Yeah, just looking through the whole process. You uncovered, I don't know, 6 or 7 steps we need to take before we get to a demo. So we've been kind of speeding through some of these, and that's probably why we haven't had as much success as we'd like. So it's been constructive and eye-opening, and I think it's really going to help us on the process side, on the sales, and the operations side on the back end too, especially with the project overview. It gets everyone on the same page and sets expectations. So I like it.
Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah, I kind of equate it to to golf, right? So you want to hit it hard. You think you got to swing super fast and hard, but then if you slow down, usually it's a better result. Same with the sales process. Is we want to get to the proposal so we can close the business and earn a commission or bring on a new customer. But if we slow it down, oftentimes the results are just far better because you understand what you're doing. You hit the points better. You just position everything a whole lot better as a consultant, as an advisor, as opposed to how many phones, how many users, here's a quote. You want to do it? It's like, that's what everyone else is typically doing,
Yeah, when you're sticking to your own process, you're not playing to someone else's tempo or game. So
yeah,
it's your own.
Yeah, absolutely. You can drive that a little bit better and make sure that you hit the things you need, So yeah, okay, good. So any other feedback, Jeff, Ben, Keith, anyone else on here still?
It's a good refresher. I've been through the sales course at least 5 or 6 times.
Yep.
With our reps, but it's you guys keep adding more and more to it. But basic principles are the same, but there's more. You guys are adding more detail as far as like including the watch guard, and stuff like that. That's all stuff that we never had. The opportunity to do.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's something that I got really excited about. As you know, I was on the street selling for a long time, and when I first started, the traditional way where we'd sell capital expense of firewall, whether it's that time it wasn't WatchGuard, is other solutions, right? But I always dreaded having to go back in like 3 years and sell something I made no money on, of like a software update or like having to do licensing, and it's just a hard conversation that they never remembered. And even if you did bring it up, is that they don't remember, and it's never a fun conversation. And so when we had the ability to do the WatchGuard program and actually do provide equipment month to month and a low cost, it was just a no-brainer, or it made it so much easier. But you don't have that contrast unless you did it the old way, right? So yeah, it's nice to have it that way. Plus, like I said, to me, it's a linchpin of getting in there, and then you have a hold on the network where it makes it a whole lot easier to circle back on the IT conversation later on. All right, sounds good. Well, unless there's any other questions, comments, thoughts, we can go ahead and wrap it up and let everyone get back to their day. And then, as always, any questions come up after, anything we can do to help implement, support you guys in this process, myself and the rest of TAG are at your disposal. So please use us, okay?
Hey, Ryan, I just have one more question. I was kind of waiting my turn and just see if the question came up concerning the front end package. And obviously, there's a lot of information in that. And we have traditionally not used a front end package. We kind of use a front end flyer versus a package. But I am working with Janet to put a package together now. What experience you guys have with and without the package, and how useful that is to the customer? How many do you actually go through it thoroughly? How many jobs you find that they just really didn't even look at it? I don't. What experiences you have in that area?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we talked about this in one of the previous in the DISC training. I don't know if you sat through that or not. Yeah. So we touched on that. So it was a standard for us. We always sent it out, right? Every deal we sent it out, whether it was an 8-phone deal or 80. Because the way we looked at it is, 1, it made a great first impression difference.
Yeah, I agree.
2, it gave a little extra time of education. And 3, which to me was the most important piece, is that we understood a little bit more about their communication, or their attention to detail, or behavioral style, tying it to DISC, right? And so there was one opportunity that I'll never forget, where this individual, he literally, we asked about it when we got there, sitting on his desk, and we asked about it, and he opened it up and proceeded to walk us through underlining things, highlighted things, even pointed out that there was, on page 3 and 7, there was grammatical errors that he wanted to make sure that we were aware of.
Yeah, I'm writing ours. I'm sure there'll be plenty to catch.
Yeah. It's like, okay, he is no doubt there's a C component there. And it's huge, because then we knew going through the whole process is that we better slow it down. We better make sure we fully explain things and not just hit the bottom line, because that's important to him. And all those things that go along with understanding the DISC, right? So for us, it's really valuable for all those things. In terms of how many people, read it fully, I'd say the majority didn't read it. But even if they didn't, it was still a nice impression. There's a lot of D's who got it, like D styles, who got it, said, "Yep, I got it, thanks." And they probably barely opened it, but it still makes an impression, because guaranteed no one else is seeing that type of information, So
okay.
We found that it helped across the board.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll let you get back to your day. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We appreciate it. Excited to be wrapping this up next week, and really excited to hear everyone's thoughts. If you would take a moment to, going into next week, if you're debriefing with your team, if you're just thinking and collecting your own thoughts, is that think about, what are the biggest takeaways that you've gotten out of the micro learning? What are the things that you've implemented? And if there's any things that you have tried out and maybe run across some roadblocks or challenges or need clarity on, that's what next week is for, to bring those up, discuss it as a group. So it'll be valuable if you just put a little bit of time into that going into that meeting next week. Okay.
Okay.
So we have homework.
Yeah, homework. There we go. Yeah, who asked that?
Vic.
Yeah, there you go, Vic. Yeah, right.
Vic.
I'm lucky
Better
where I'm
beat you up
still.
after
Otherwise,
class.
I'd have people kicking my butt.
Yeah.
And Jeff, if Sonia was on here, I'd be afraid.
There you go.
She's upstairs working.
Yeah, careful what you ask for. All right. Well,
Hey, thanks everyone. Thanks,
Good
Ryan.
seeing you. Yeah, take care.
Thank you, Ryan.
Bye.